Today we are diving into one of the most explosive and dangerous geopolitical moments in recent years. Reports are circulating that Iran may be preparing to target U.S. military bases across Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Turkey. At the same time, former U.S. President Donald Trump is publicly vowing very strong action, while protests and unrest ripple across the region and beyond. This situation is layered, tense, and filled with risks that could reshape the Middle East and global security overnight. To understand how serious this is, we need to step back and look at the bigger picture. The United States maintains dozens of military installations across the Middle East. These bases are not symbolic. They are operational hubs for air power, intelligence gathering, missile defense, logistics, and rapid response. In Saudi Arabia, U.S. forces support air defense systems and coordinate closely with Saudi military leadership. In the UAE, American bases play a key role in surveillance and naval operations in the Persian Gulf. In Turkey, U.S. troops stationed at locations like Incirlik Air Base are critical to NATO's southern flank. Iran sees these bases very differently. From Tehran's perspective, they are not defensive structures but forward operating posts aimed directly at Iran. Iranian leaders have repeatedly stated that if the U.S. attacks Iran, every American base in the region becomes a legitimate target. This is not new rhetoric. It has been repeated for years, but the current climate makes it far more dangerous than before. The backdrop to these threats includes rising protests, regional instability, and a long chain of provocations and retaliations. Protests have erupted across parts of the Middle East and even beyond, fueled by anger over U.S. foreign policy, sanctions on Iran, and broader frustrations with regional governments aligned with Washington. These protests create pressure on leaders, reduce diplomatic room for compromise, and increase the risk of miscalculation. Donald Trump's role in this situation adds another layer of volatility. Trump has built his political identity around strength, deterrence, and unpredictability. When he says the U.S. will respond with very strong action, it is not a vague statement. His past decisions show a willingness to escalate quickly, whether through sanctions, military strikes, or targeted operations. Supporters see this as deterrence. Critics see it as pouring gasoline on an already burning fire. Iran, on the other hand, operates through a strategy of asymmetric warfare. Rather than matching U.S. military power directly, Iran relies on missiles, drones, cyber attacks, and allied militias spread across the region. Groups aligned with Iran operate in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. This network allows Iran to apply pressure without always claiming direct responsibility, making retaliation complex and politically risky for Washington. If Iran were to strike U.S. bases in Saudi Arabia or the UAE, it would mark a dramatic escalation. These countries are key U.S. allies and major energy producers. Any attack on their territory would not only be an attack on American forces but also a direct threat to global oil markets. Even limited strikes could send oil prices soaring, disrupt shipping lanes, and trigger economic shockwaves worldwide. Turkey's situation is even more complicated. Turkey is a NATO member, which means an attack on a U.S. base there could raise questions about collective defense under NATO's Article 5. While the alliance has internal tensions, especially between Ankara and Washington, an Iranian strike on Turkish soil could drag NATO into a confrontation that neither side truly wants. Iran understands these risks, which is why analysts believe any attack would likely be carefully calibrated. Instead of large-scale bombardments, Iran might opt for missile strikes on specific facilities, drone attacks designed to test defenses, or cyber operations that disrupt communications and infrastructure. The goal would be to demonstrate capability and resolve without triggering full-scale war. However, history shows that controlled escalation often fails. Once missiles start flying and soldiers are killed, political leaders face enormous pressure to respond forcefully. Public opinion, media coverage, and alliance commitments can quickly push events beyond anyone's control. What starts as a limited response can spiral into a regional conflict. The mention of protests is crucial here. Protests create instability, and instability narrows options. Governments under pressure are more likely to take hardline positions. In Iran, protests challenge the legitimacy of the leadership, making it harder for them to appear weak in the face of U.S. threats. In allied countries hosting U.S. bases, protests can turn public opinion against American presence, complicating cooperation at a critical moment. Trump's rhetoric is designed to project strength, but it also locks him into a corner. If Iran were to strike and the U.S. response appeared weak, it would undermine his image and political standing. That increases the likelihood of a strong, possibly overwhelming response, which Iran is trying to deter by signaling that any conflict would be costly for everyone involved. Another key factor is Israel. While not directly mentioned in the headline, Israel plays a major role behind the scenes. Israel views Iran as its greatest existential threat and has conducted numerous covert and overt operations against Iranian targets. If the US and Iran enter open conflict, Israel would almost certainly be involved, either defensively or offensively. That would further expand the scope of the war. Russia and China are also watching closely. Russia has ties with Iran and a military presence in Syria. China relies heavily on Middle Eastern energy supplies. Neither wants a major war, but both could use the crisis to advance their strategic interests, diplomatically or economically. Their involvement would add yet another layer of complexity. For ordinary people, the consequences of this standoff could be severe. War in the Middle East rarely stays contained. Refugee flows, economic disruption, and rising energy costs would affect countries far beyond the region. Financial markets hate uncertainty, and this situation is full of it. Even rumors of conflict can cause panic buying, currency fluctuations, and stock market volatility. The U.S. military has prepared for scenarios like this for decades. Missile defense systems, hardened shelters, and rapid response units are designed to reduce casualties and maintain operational capability. But no system is perfect. Even a single successful strike causing significant loss of life could change the political calculus overnight. Iran's leadership must also consider its own vulnerabilities. Despite its rhetoric, Iran knows that a direct war with the United States would be devastating. U.S. air and naval power could cripple Iranian infrastructure, military facilities, and economic assets in a matter of days. That reality is why Iran prefers indirect methods and deniable actions. Diplomacy, though weakened, has not completely disappeared. Back-channel communications often exist even during the most hostile periods. Regional mediators, European governments, and international organizations may be working quietly to prevent the worst-case scenario. However, diplomacy requires time and trust, both of which are in short supply. The role of media cannot be ignored. Headlines like these heighten fear and tension, sometimes amplifying worst-case assumptions. While the threat is real, not every report signals an imminent attack. Military posturing, psychological warfare, and information operations are all part of modern conflict. Distinguishing between signaling and actual preparation is incredibly difficult, even for experts. Still, the convergence of threats, protests, and aggressive rhetoric makes this moment particularly dangerous. It only takes one misinterpreted radar signal, one rogue militia action, or one political miscalculation to trigger a chain reaction. Once that happens, leaders may find themselves reacting rather than controlling events. For viewers trying to make sense of this, the key takeaway is this: the situation is volatile, but not inevitable. War is a choice, even when it feels unavoidable. The coming days and weeks will likely be filled with statements, warnings, and displays of force. Behind the scenes, intense efforts may be underway to prevent disaster. If Iran does attack U.S. bases, the response will almost certainly be swift and severe. If the U.S. launches preemptive strikes, Iran will retaliate. Either path leads to escalation. The best-case scenario is deterrence holding, with both sides stepping back at the last possible moment. The worst-case scenario is a regional war that draws in multiple powers and reshapes the global order. This is why this story matters so much. It is not just about Iran and the United States. It is about energy security, global stability, alliance credibility, and the lives of millions of people who have no say in these decisions. The world has seen how quickly localized conflicts can spiral out of control. As this situation develops, it is critical to stay informed, skeptical, and aware of how narratives are shaped. Strong words do not always lead to strong actions, but sometimes they do. The line between deterrence and provocation is thin, and right now, everyone is walking on it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel.